At the end of that hiatus, of that month-long hiatus that Oda took, he came back and said, "It's time for me to go all out." And here, sitting in this very chair, I read that author comment when we sat down to read 11-12. And I thought to myself, and more than likely expressed it verbally, what do you mean? What do you mean it's time for you to now go all out? Considering, if I were to rank my favorite sections / arcs / whatever in the entire series, the last 5 arcs this man has written are all in my top 10. He's been cooking for quite some time. Since 1997, as a matter of fact, but in particular, I'm talking about at the very, very highest level for these last few years. So when I read that, I was like, this man might be capping. Now, who am I? Who am I to sit here and say that Oda's capping? Who was I? What did I think? Who in the Flying Flagnars was the King Recon who read chapter 11-12? I'm not sure. But that brother thought that Oda was, in the smallest iota in the back of his mind, was like, yo, this brother's capping. Because there's no way that Wano and Egghead back-to-back was not this man going all out. The Gear 5 greatness. He laughed greatness. Going into Egghead with the insanity that we've gotten so far. Lore piece galore. Around the world piece at its absolute finest. 1079 to 1088. Kuma flashback. I mean, bro, so many different, incredible pieces of legendary stuff. Top greatest in the series potential in a series that already has so many legendary moments. And this man has the audacity to come back and say, now it's time for me to go all out. I sit here before you today, after having read chapters 11-12, 11-13, and 11-14, and had a few days to sit on 11-14 in particular. He wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. Listen, man, this dude, from the moment that he wrote that, not only has his art been sublime, I mean, you can look at the art in the last few chapters, and it is crazy. It is actually insane. You see the amount of detail in so many different sections, especially on stuff like the Mother Flame panel and the Vegapunk panel. It's, whenever it shows his brain, it's like, dude, it looks insane. Not only from an art standpoint, double page spreads up the wazoo for God knows how many chapters, but from a storytelling standpoint, it truly does feel like this is what he was referring to. Stuff like in last week's chapter with us finally getting that reveal that the One Piece world is sinking, right? It is flooding. When we cut back to the Around the World sections earlier in this arc and saw the entire world, saw Windmill Village, and saw several pieces of the One Piece world reacting to the fact that the after effects of this massive hole that was caused by the Lucia, right? That was causing the waves to move, and all of us in our heads were like, wow, this is where the Aqua Laguna comes from. Obviously, with the huge hole in Eni's lobby, that's what causes the Aqua Laguna to come in and hit Water 7. And it's like, sweet mother of Flagnars, right? This man was cooking from all the way back then. That was the same arc where we had the most stuff given to us in regards to ancient weapons and the Void Century, nearly having the Ancient Kingdom revealed, and Ohara, and so many of these different things. But then we get into present day, and we see how these things are having an actual effect in real time, and how it really does feel like the sea levels are rising. And immediately we're like, wait a minute. Is this what reset the world all the way back then? Then we get our answer, at least what I believe is the answer, when 11-13 dropped, for that incredible reveal. And it's like, yes, it's a pirate manga again. We're cooking, we're eating. It's incredible. It's a reveal that recontextualizes so many things, especially in regards to Roger and him sending people out to the seas. It just made me want to go back and reread the series again. And speaking of wanting to go back and reread the series again, Then he drops 1114, another Around the World chapter, where we see Jaguar D Sol cutting over to our first comment of the day from Manas190, who says, the hype for lore piece is off the roof. But my favorite part of the chapter is seeing all these characters again, especially that dada she. You wanna know why this video is late? Because I had to figure out a way to get this tripod working again. Listen, man, it's all thanks to Mr. Jaguar D Sol, son. Who would have thought turning the page and seeing him? I was like, yo, we're not seeing him till Elbaf. Easy. Oda was like, no, absolutely not. I said we're going all out. And that means we're going all out. I jumped out of my bed when I saw that figure multiple times in the chapter. How do you have Jaguar D Sol, Don Quixote D of Flamingo, Tangent, Big T, Instant Messenger Sama, and of course, going on to the next comment, Leo Dog, who says, seeing Shushu, good bro. This is what I mean when long-term build-up and your emotional attachment to these characters is above anything else, right? Who in a million years would have thought that we would cut back to Shushu and the mayor from Orangetown? From Orangetown. Who would have thought that such a crazy reveal would merit us literally going to so many different places we haven't seen in a long time? Usopp and his boys with Kaya. Like I said, the other characters that I've mentioned up until this point. But the one that shocked me the most right there with Saul was seeing Shushu again. I was like, bro, this is crazy, son. It's crazy, all right? Like, it really does feel like we were getting to end game One Piece. Look at him, man. Just King of the Pirates is around the corner, bro. We're about to go to Elbaf, man. It's right around the corner. Leo Dog says, seeing Shushu again was something I thought I might never see, but of course, what was I thinking? This is One Piece. Everyone is important. And I think that's what has made this entire arc feel that much more like a major event. And Oda, of course, has created this arc from the very beginning, with this being a major incident that is going to have catastrophic repercussions felt throughout the entire world. And time and time and time and time again, he has showcased that. Whether it is through narration, like in chapter 1078, where we literally see this is going to be something that's going to affect the entire One Piece world, or when he goes around the world and showcases the craziness happening around the Shanks stuff, the Garf stuff, the Instant Messenger Sama stuff, and everything of the sort, to see all of the different moving pieces and how Egghead and the events of Egghead are going to continue to allow those tidal waves to get even larger, right? And I'm not even talking about from a literal standpoint. I'm talking about from the standpoint of the story escalating and escalating beyond our wildest imaginations with what's happening here on Egghead Island, right? Like, I can't even imagine what post-Egghead has in store for us, considering what happened in the Around the World piece sections and within Egghead itself. It's like, just based on what took place in this chapter, just based on the fact that people on the planet now know who Joy Boy is going to lead to major, major repercussions in the Around the World sections of the story, right? Especially whenever we get to a post-Egghead. So it's like he's been treating this as a major incident. That's why I'm so glad every time we go around the world, it makes so much sense. It's like this is a major, major big deal. And it's going to affect the entire planet, which is why Vegapunk created this transmission in order to make sure that everyone feels this thing and they know of what's coming. The sea level, Joy Boy, the story of legend, the first pirate, man. And it's like, dude, so many pieces are being put into play, and literally within the verse, people are watching this transmission take place and live reacting to it, right? They have people like myself within the manga live reacting to these events, and it's so cool because it makes the Egghead incident truly feel like something that is affecting the entire planet, as it should be if it's going to be of the same caliber of the God Valley incident. Because remember, what makes God Valley so mysterious and intriguing is that only a select few individuals even know of its existence, right? This thing was wiped off the map, and people do not speak of these things unless they were very, very high on the totem pole. But they can't escape what's happening on Egghead. Vegapunk would not allow O'Hara or God Valley to take place again. People were going to know of what is either happening on Egghead Island or what the after effects of this are going to be. But by the Flagnards, they're going to know. This is not going to be buried into history, right? And so I'm so glad that we've been getting the Around the World section stuff throughout this entire arc, but especially now with the transmission taking place. And this is like the perfect time for Oda to not only have fan service for us, but to also showcase just how huge and important this is. When you have Imu, Doflamingo, Jaguar D Sol, and Shushu reacting to something, it's like, you know it's huge. You know it's huge. And I'm so glad that we cut over to Polly, too, considering the Aqua Laguna stuff, right? Which is what we keep calling back to. But obviously, the chapters have been incredible. Lore Piece has been at its absolute finest. Egghead, like I said in stream, I don't see it going on for another 5 chapters. I really do think we're in the final volume of Egghead. And volume's length of chapters in Egghead. And I could see us in post-Egghead. I know we're not getting a chapter for a while, and we're still in a little break thing, but I'm gonna say by July or August, we are in post-Egghead heading to Elbaf. We're not be surprised if Elbaf starts by September. Right, like we are dangerously close to that point, and Oda is saying that the series is gonna end in 3 years. Once again, cap, because it's gonna take us that long just to get to Elbaf, right? But it's so insane. It's so insane how these moving pieces have continued to escalate and progress throughout the course of the arc, because it's been crazy. And I have so many comments here. Shout out to the chat and the individuals for submitting comments. I know it's been a while since we've done Afterthoughts, and I'm so glad that it's this chapter, bro, because man, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, dude. I have gone back and rewatched so many sections of the story in these past couple days while I attempted to make some sort of thing for the tripod, which is working so far, in order to have it working. So I've spent the past few days in my free time watching and rewatching multiple different sections of the story. Just because I needed that, like, man, is this what he was referring to here? Is this what he was referring to here? Like, these chapters are recontextualizing the entire series, which is, if I'm already feeling that way now, I can't imagine how it's going to be once we reach the Void Century stuff. That reminds me. I'm seeing it in literally everything. Like, I've been watching a ton of old classic Studio Ghibli movies for my own work. And instead of being extremely inspired in my own work, like how it normally is, because of what's happening in One Piece, I've just been connecting a whole bunch of stuff to the story. And it's like, wait a minute, man. And so I really hope I get the opportunity to talk about that here soon in the future, because it does feel like Oda was drawing a lot of inspirations from those movies back in the day. But regardless, let's go ahead and get into this. Gold Slash! Shout out to my boy, comes in. Hey, man, Dragon didn't show up like you were predicting, but by the Flagnards soon. Monkey D. Dragon coming in soon. You can bet your money on it. Put it on a parlay. Dragon showing up and doing something. Maybe not an Egghead, but against the Holy Knights here by the end of 2024. Book it. Mark it. That's the parlay. Gold Slash comes in and says, what's up, coach? Firstly, if Robin or Shaka end up revealing the Ancient Kingdom name, which is what I want. Right? We talked about that on stream. I think it was either the last stream or the stream before. And I really want one of those two things to happen. That'll be wild. I forgot who brought it up on stream. We were talking about it. I believe it was Arend who brought up the possibility of Shaka. Was it Arend? Was it Alexi? I'm trying to remember who it was. I apologize for not remembering exactly who brought it up. But someone brought up the Shaka thing, and I was like, yo, what about if it's Robin? And, and we started conversing after that, but it would just be so peak, regardless of who ends up doing it. Either of the two, what a way to end the arc and revealing the name of the Ancient Kingdom, right? And I wouldn't even need it with all the craziness we've gotten so far. I apologize, but that panel would be blazing from the amount of heat it would give off. Facts. The giant straw hat being the OG Pirate King crown is something I've mentioned to my friends so many times. Roger had it, God King Shanks had it, our king wears it. There's also a panel where somebody listening to Noland has one. Could it be nothing but perhaps the Pirate King of that era, or a potential one. Do you think Joy Boy is confirmed as a member of the Buccaneers? Also, did Zoro's ability to get lost become so strong that it affected Jinbei now too? Hey. No slandering Jinbei. We can slander many different individuals in the series, but no Jinbei slander. No Jinbei slander around these parts, alright? No Jinbei slander. But he'll be back. Our favorite Hawaiian shirt boy will be back soon, alright? But in terms of Joy Boy being a part of the Buccaneers and the OG Pirate King crown. So, in terms of Joy Boy being a part of the Buccaneers, I do think Joy Boy or Nika, one of the two, is a Buccaneer for sure. Considering that the Buccaneers were the first pirates, I would not be shocked if Joy Boy ends up being the first Buccaneer, which is why they had to extinguish that entire race, or they felt like they had to extinguish an entire race of individuals. And I would not be surprised if, while being a Buccaneer, like you guys brought up on stream, he's the one who has the eye patch and the peg leg and stuff. Like literally the picture perfect pirate, right? That we think of, even with the parrot, like with the hat. He's just that he was the original pirate, and that was just how he looked like, and everybody thought that's what pirates would look like after that, right? Which is really cool, considering that Blackbeard is the second, is the pirate that looks most like a pirate after what we assume is going to be Joy Boy in that flashback. If he truly is the one with the eye patch, right? The one that we've been waiting for this entire time. So I do think Joy Boy is going to be a part of the Buccaneers, of the Buccaneer race. Like I said, because of the Nika thing, going back to your crown and the OG Joy Boy, I'm almost certain that Nika had it. The thing that is not brought up into the question is whether Nika existed or not, right? Like whether this is an individual that actually existed or if it was just legend that was brought up through time, and whether Nika and Joy Boy were actually, whether they actually were the same person, just referred to by a different title, according to the Giants, or if Nika truly was a different individual. Which, if the Giant thing is anything to go by, and the Giant Straw Hat and the Muddy Jaw is another thing to go by, then I strongly believe that Straw Hat probably belonged to Nika and might have been passed down to Joy Boy, which then was passed down over here. Which means it could be considered that original crown. Like we talked about on stream, the Straw Hat could be the representative of that revolution, right? Or it shouldn't even be a revolution. Like we know that Imu and them came in and overthrew the advanced civilization, right? They went in, brought in their grand fleet, quote unquote, which I think is a really cool parallel to what's going to happen at the end of the story. But Imu and the 20 Kings came in, took care of business, overthrew it, and now he sits on what's supposed to be the empty throne. I think if Joy Boy was considered like the king of his time, and the Straw Hat was like representative of the throne, or I'm sorry, but literally of the throne, but of the crown at that time, right? I think that is extremely fascinating. Like, not only just in regards to how things change over time and perception and stuff like that, but I think that would be a really cool thing to dive into, because the characters nowadays don't know anything about that. That this thing, the Straw Hat, was considered to only belong to the kings of the time, right? Like your Joy Boys and the legends of the time that, of course, to Imu and them means something completely different. But over time, it sort of lost that, okay, no, kings will actually wear crowns now, and I'm pretty sure that's what Imu and them intended, right? To try to make that Straw Hat lose itself over time, and the value of the Straw Hat to lose itself over time. But regardless, I really want us to go that route, where we see a king, whether it be Joy Boy, whether it be Nika, wearing the Straw Hat, and people know them as a king and or as someone of legendary status because of them having the Straw Hat. I think that's something super cool that Oda could say a lot with, in regards to, from a thematic standpoint, of we've gone through so many different storylines and arcs in this series with kings who should not be sitting on the thrones. We've always talked about, you know, the real kings and the individuals on the seas, right? How interesting would it be to literally have that manifest itself in the Boy Century flashback with someone who actually wears a crown on his head, an emu, with the actual king and the person who wears a straw hat. There's so many different possibilities for dealing with what it means to be a king, what it means to be a ruler through individuals like Lily, Joy Boy, like influence, so many different things that have already been, you know, brought to us by multiple different arcs in the series. But to have that be at the forefront of the Boy Century flashback is something I'm very much looking forward to. So I'm hoping you're right on that, Gold Slash. I really am hoping you're right on that. Speaking of that, we go into the next comment, which comes in from Red Haired Hank. And he says, I legit got chills reading that final monologue from Vegapunk. We were reading a pirate manga, folks. It's like, that's it, man. I'm in agreement. I think we're out of Egghead within this year. And then post-Egghead has so much potential. I want the Joy Boy backstory ASAP. I can't wait to learn his story, no matter how tragic it might be. The history of the world must be told. So, while watching Castle in the Sky, the Ghibli movie that I was talking about earlier, I came to the conclusion that I do not believe we're going to be seeing the Joy Boy backstory, in particular Joy Boy's backstory, until we get to Laugh Tale. The reason why I say that is because one of the big major reveals within that movie is finally seeing Laputa and seeing how different it looks in comparison to the legend, right? You see the legend, you see the painting, you see the pictures, you see what it's supposed to look like. And then once you actually get there and you see this previously advanced civilization that's been wiped out, which is why I think it's so cool. That's not the first story or the last story to do it, but I've always appreciated when stories do stuff like that, especially when they connect to one another in the way that it's like with One Piece. But whenever you get there and you see like the robots and you see the how everything's mossed and it just looks so cool, but it's still extremely advanced. It made me think about what's going to happen once we get to Laugh Tale, because obviously it's going to be a very similar situation, a super advanced civilization that has been, or I should say, a place, a location that belonged to a super advanced civilization that's going to showcase itself through that. As we continue to get more details, like we did in Egghead, to fill in the pieces of just how advanced it was back in the day. But once we get there, I would want to see it through our main character's eyes first, before we look at what it looked like within the Void Century, to have the differences, right? To have that is similar to every other arc in the series. When we arrived at, let's just say Drum Island as an example. We arrived at Drum Island and we see how the island is now, and we saw how the island was back during Hidaluk's time. Same thing with O'Hara, same thing with Dressrosa, so many different arcs. It's, you know, once you get to the island, you want to find out the backstory behind the island and the people of that island. So I feel like it would be perfect if once we get to Laugh Tale, we find out the story of the ancient kingdom, and we have that point of comparison between when the Straw Hats arrived and got there to that point, and how Joy Boy was in that time period. So I don't think we're going to get the Joy Boy flashback in the next chapter. I do not think so. As a matter of fact, I would put more on the fact that we're going to get more Nika stuff than Joy Boy stuff coming here in the future. I think Oda's going to save the Joy Boy stuff. I mean, obviously we're going to get some more as time progresses, but I think we're going to get the Joy Boy stuff in its entirety once we get to the Laugh Tale and we see the One Piece and we read what Roger read, right? That's when I think we're going to get the Joy Boy flashback. The Nika stuff, that is of course going to be revealed to us in Elbaf, and I'm very, very excited for that, considering how much that's going to do for the overall lore of the story. So I'm actually thinking we're going to get that first, and then we get the Void Century stuff. That's my thought process, at least in regards to that. I don't think we're going to get the Joy Boy backstory soon, but I could be wrong. Looking at it, how Oda has told the story up until this point, I do think we get to the island first. We see it through the Straw Hat's eyes, and then we see how it was in the past. I mean, how cool is it going to be whenever we get to Laugh Tale and we see these things from an advanced kingdom from back in the day, and we're trying to put these pieces together. Nami, Robin, Luffy, they're like, yo, how do we even get to the next point? We don't understand this island, you know? It's going to be so interesting how they handle the mysteries there, because to the characters, of course, maybe to us, we're gonna look at a lot of this stuff and be like, man, like, this is how obviously you would get from this point to this point. But they haven't dealt with an advanced civilization like that, right? So it's gonna provide, in and of itself, the island is gonna prove an obstacle to them attempting to get to the One Piece, right? And I find stuff like that to be extremely interesting, and I'd much rather see it that way, and then we get the Joy Boy flashback. But I could be wrong. Now, I want to talk about something staying on those lines with the Joy Boy stuff, because obviously this is going to be the main topic of discussion within this chapter, or within this chapter Afterthoughts. But Roger Jug comes in his first off unbelievable chapter out of Oda yet again. I don't know how he keeps doing it every week. This arc has been 54 chapters of straight gas. Spitting. Now, some thoughts about the chapter. The Mother Flame seems almost sentient, given the way it was zoomed in on those panels and with some sound effects to it. I wonder if it's something that exists since the voice century, or only something that Vegapunk discovers as created. I would argue that this thing has existed for a very, very long time. I'm talking Void Century and beyond. Void Century and beyond, because we are led to believe that this is the power source that fueled a lot of the stuff from back in the day, like the Iron Giant, right? So if that's the case, this thing has been around for a very, very long time, and we are now coming in to rediscover it after all these years. Joy Boy being the first pirate is absolutely peak. Of course he was. Very interesting that he was from the Advanced Kingdom, which I think was a completely isolated kingdom that no one knew about. I think he was almost exactly like Luffy in personality, completely carefree and full of fun. You know, I'm curious, because obviously I'm in agreement with you. Same thing with Nico. But I'm curious on the differences between the three, because we've already seen the differences between other characters that are meant to be sort of the same to us, right? Roger, Shanks, Luffy. These are three individuals that on the surface have a lot of those similar core values, but they're very different from one another. So I'm excited to see the differences between Nika, Joy Boy, and Luffy in their personalities. My theory is that life was just so good in the kingdom that Joy Boy got bored and left to discover the world and wreak little havoc. I love that theory. Much like Luffy, he found his crew all across the world. Also like Luffy, I think it was regular size on a giant. He found the Gomu Gomu no Mi on his journey, awakened at some point, and they found Elbaf. There he saw the giants and thought to use his fruit to grow to their size, maybe as a joke, pretending to be one. He must have done something for them, and they made him the giant Straw Hat. That's fascinating. Now, who knows how he interacted with Imu? The whole theory is speculation in and of itself, but he was such a hindrance to Imu that Imu tried to eradicate Joy Boy completely from the world, removing all knowledge of him. That might also be why the ancient kingdom got wiped out, because Imu found out that's where Joy Boy was from. We get a Joy Boy flashback next chapter, highly unlikely to me since it seems too early in Rush. I will go insane. So I'm right there with you. I would also go insane, but I don't think it's happening. Now, in regards to Imu and the ancient kingdom stuff, because this is something I can't stop thinking about. I really can't, right? Because you're absolutely right. Obviously, a massive hindrance to Imu. So it's like, okay, we look at what's been showed to us throughout the course of the series so far. I don't know what happened to the island that was previously inhabiting Enies Lobby, that then Enies Lobby came in and replaced. Whatever happened there, I'm very curious as to what caused that. The only other thing that we have in this story, besides like the obvious Buster Call stuff, that has received this Mother Flame treatment is, or two things: God Valley and flipping Leloucia. So it's like we look at both of those things, and Leloucia obviously was just close. Imu was like, "Yo, let's just test it out. The drive-thru is nearby. Let's go get some McDonald's," and he took out Leloucia. But in regards to God Valley, there was a purpose behind this. They wanted this information to be eradicated at all costs, and there was obviously some very taboo subjects that were being, that they were messing around with here. That Rock was trying to get some answers for things that must not come to light. Right? They're like, all right, yeah, we got to erase this thing, and no one was come to know of the incident of God Valley. Looking at the Ancient Kingdom, and looking at the way WG has handled stuff so far in this story, just this thing's existence. To me, if I were in Imu's position with his values, and knowing that they want to have complete control over the information that is coming out into the world, and the narrative and propaganda that is being released into the public as like the truth, and skewering that truth to the high flagnards, I would get rid of the Ancient Kingdom as well. If I were a villain in Imu's shoes, that's what I would do. Because that is the direct thing that is going against everything I'm attempting to do and or say to the world. If the world were to find out about that, the existence of that, it would go against what we are currently building. And Imu values that above all things. Imu hasn't even shown himself on the throne to more than like 10 people. The only ones that I can think of in my mind, at least the ones that know of his existence, right? Not even on the throne. The throne is just Cobra, and he died immediately, right? And Sabo, who's still breathing oxygen, somehow, which is a testament to his greatness. But the other individuals that I'm sure know of his existence, that must be like limited to like less than 10 people. So with that being said, Imu does not care, does not have the pride of the other kings in the One Piece world, just wants to rule. Just wants to rule and ensure that things remain the way they are. And that something like the Will of D, Joy Boy, and anything to do with the Advanced Kingdom and the Advanced Civilization back in the day does not happen again. And if it were to happen again, it's time for that great cleansing. Just what the Godosei are preparing themselves for. This stuff is so insanely important to them that they tried everything in their power to stop Vegapunk from transmitting this message. All 5 of the Godosei entered their forms, have shown themselves on Egghead to try to stop this thing from going out. Because to Imu and to the Godosei, the individuals having knowledge, just knowledge of the world sinking and of Joy Boy's existence could potentially be the thing that usurps the throne. And I'm sure that is the number one thing that they are most afraid of, is the people rebelling. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is that it must have happened in reverse back in the day, where Imu and the squad, when they came in to overthrow the Ancient Kingdom and that advanced civilization, when they came in to take it out and establish themselves, it must have been the will of the people who made that happen, right? It wasn't just Imu, obviously. It was Imu rolling up with a bunch of different kingdoms. So Imu must know more than anyone how far public opinion goes and how deeply rooted it can be in establishing something. So if that was something that worked for them, they know that it can come right back and bite them. And I think that's why, for so many years, they have tried their hardest. That's why they didn't call the Gomu Gomu no Mi the actual name of it, right? They just did not want anyone. Even if someone really were to find the Gomu Gomu no Mi, they wouldn't know how to awaken it, right? And obviously, they wouldn't have the opportunity to attempt to capture it, because like they said, it continues to evade them, right? Even if they had tried to capture it. So it's so fascinating to me that is what they're most afraid of. It's not like the Yonko, for example, or some great power that like in terms of actual like hockey or physical strength or whatever. They can handle that. As we clearly are seeing, there are 5 very strong individuals, and Imu right now is looking like the strongest individual in the history of the verse. Considering what we're seeing from the rest of the Godosei, right? Like these are clearly individuals who are not afraid of just strong individuals. They've dealt with that before in the past. They've been around for a very long time. But what they are afraid of is that transmission of information that could potentially overthrow and destroy everything that they've built for the last 900 years, right? And that, to me, is extremely, extremely interesting, because then we get into, like you said, what is it? What was that connection between Imu and the Ancient Kingdom? Imu and Joy Boy. That made that be like, no, we cannot allow something like that to ever happen again. You know what I mean? That, to me, is like the piece of the puzzle that I just can't wait for Oda to put in, because we have so many other pieces. But that's the one that Oda himself as the author needs to put in. It's like, why? Why Joy Boy? Why Imu? Like you said, it could have been that Joy Boy left from this place, similar to how Toki left from Wano and went on that adventure before eventually making it back home, right? Or whatever the case may be. But it's just there. I want to know more about that story. Lily, Joy Boy, Imu, like, what is the connection? What were they to each other? So many interesting things. But thank you, Rocket Jug. It's just this stuff, man. It's that boy Oda. He's cooking at the highest level. He really is. Now, let's go into Thomas Fury's comment. Thomas Fury 224 says, "What's up, Coach? Great stream as always. Rip Camera-kun, though. We revived it. We revived it. Would appreciate you. I find it interesting that Vegapunk specified Joy Boy was born 900 years ago, and that is very important. Joy Boy was specifically born 900 years ago, and yet the Void Century, for as long as we know, covers that 100-year period between Joy Boy's birth and his death, right? That is our assumption. When in chapter 1043, Zunisha states it's the first time in 800 years that he heard the drums of liberation. That means that, let me read your comment. Does this mean Joy Boy took 100 years to awaken the sun god Nika fruit? I don't think so. Or does our big elephant bro have amnesia? This could also be more evidence for Joy Boy being a giant, given the long lifespan. A 100-year-old giant probably looks similar in appearance to Hadru Dean, whose age is listed as 80, which might make more sense. Okay. There's a lot to take in there. Obviously, Joy Boy being 100 years old at the time of his death is something that I was not expecting, and I'm sure a lot of other individuals out there were not expecting either. I do think that he awakened the fruit before that point, because if not, Zunisha would not like really know the sound. So I think he'd already awakened it multiple times. I just think the last time he awakened it, that's what he was referring to, which means Joy Boy could have died after having awakened and utilizing Jump's liberation, and then dying, right? Like after going Gear 5 or whatever he referred to it as, and dying in that state, dying in that form. That's also a big possibility. But I do think because of Joy Boy, or because of Zunisha's familiarity with the terms of liberation, I do think that Joy Boy had done it multiple times. This goes back to, going back to your initial thing about being born 900 years ago, and then 800 years being his death, that 100-year period. I find it so interesting if one of the main sole reasons why they have blanked that entire period from history is because of one dude. Like, Imu found this one dude to be such a major source, just such a major threat, that after that happened, they reset the way the world works after that. That they were like, we cannot allow a mention of this individual ever again. And the fact that it's being mentioned again is like, oh man. And everyone in the world knows about his name. This is like the worst case scenario for Imu. This is why I can't wait to see Imu's reaction to all of this, because this does feel like worst case scenario for all of them. Like, oh man, people know of both Nika and Joy Boy now. This is crazy. This is actually insane, right? Like, they know of the individual. They know of the individual that they have tried so hard to bury like a treasure all the way under the sea. And so it's like, what is going to be their reaction now? Because obviously there was a lot of other things that they want to hide from that time period, but that felt like the main thing they wanted to hide, Joy Boy's existence. So it's like, that's my thought process. I don't think it took him 100 years. That very well could be the truth. And then after awakening it, he died, obviously, if that is the case. But I do think that he'd awakened it multiple times before that. That's just my assumption. This is my assumption. Unless Joy Boy had a similar situation as Luffy, where he had to die or almost die in order to awaken the fruit, right? And then he awakened it, but maybe it was already too late or something. I have no idea. But it is extremely exciting for present day context, and the fact that this 100-year blank period centered around this one dude from his birth until his death. That entire period, they wanted to blank out from the course of history. They were like, no, not this guy. Like, if they were to figure out about this guy, it would change everything. We cannot allow them to know about this guy. And only select few individuals in the verse do. So it's like, man, exciting stuff. Extremely exciting stuff, especially for present day context. Thanks so much for that comment. And like you said, him being a giant, I mean, it's like, I am still leaning on Joy Boy being a Buccaneer. I really am, especially after that reveal. And considering how much they tried to eradicate every Buccaneer in the verse, I think it's starting, we put two and two together, it makes a lot of sense, right? That Joy Boy was a Buccaneer. Now, if Nika was a giant, and Joy Boy was a Buccaneer, and a giant straw hat was passed down through time, that Imu kept the giant straw hat, and then it ended up that one of the humans then took a regular straw hat, and Roger and anybody else who had it before him. That to me is also a very interesting thing to go in as well, because imagine like this ancient civilization, I don't know if it was like an actual utopia with multiple different individuals, multiple different races, like Big Mom's dream, all in one place. But I do find it interesting that if these individuals are truly human, right, like they're humans who have acquired these abilities from Dante's Inferno, right, or if they truly have originated from somewhere. I mean, listen, man, the Celestial Dragons, considering they're in the astronaut suit, and that could be considered either an astronaut suit or a way to breathe underwater, one of the two, right? Like there's multiple different ways Oda could go about this, and whether breathing in space or breathing underwater. Fact remains that we do not know if they truly are of this planet or not. Like, who knows if Imu came in from like a mothership, and decided to like take over after that as an alien. I mean that's a very far-fetched, I mean not extremely far-fetched, but it is a very out there thing, but I would not be opposed to it, right? Like I think it's something that very well could fit in line with the course of the story as an individual who maybe as a space pirate came in. Now this is going to super tinfoil land, but Imu coming in as a space pirate landed with multiple different other individuals, established themselves as these celestial dragons. As they arrived and decided to take over the planet that had already been well established, right, and infused it with their own rules and ideas and ideologies. Of course, that could very well happen, but if Imu and the Gorosei and all these individuals were actually human at their core, like actually human, it would be very interesting to me if humans ended up being the ones who were the biggest thorn on their side when they had feared the giants and the Buccaneers and all these things for so long. It's like, man, you couldn't do the one thing. You couldn't eradicate humanity. You could not eradicate the one thing that would come again to stop you. And then that lineage of Roger and Shanks and Luffy with a stride being passed down for all these years. It's like your own people were the ones that took you out. I think that would be a very interesting way for us to go about this as well. And going into what it truly means to be human, and a powerful message there at the end of the story. I mean, listen, man, there's a bunch of different ways that we can go about this. I don't know about either scenario, considering we have no idea what the Gorosei actually are, and even less what Imu actually is, or that Cuphead type of thing that he became. Now that we've seen the Gorosei's true forms, it's like, what are they? I have no idea. Are they all the same individual? Are they just the 5 pieces of Imu, like 5 pieces of Exodia? I don't know. But it is fascinating. It is extremely fascinating. Now, thank you, Thomas Fury. Now, we go into Quago2, who comes in and says, the concept of Joy Boy being the first person to take to the sea is fascinating to me. Makes me wonder what the seas could have possibly been like back then that nobody ever dared to cross them before. What was preventing them? Were the waters absolutely infested by sea kings, or even worse? Imagine if Joy Boy was the first person to ever be able to use Conqueror's Haki and tame the giant beasts. I love that. The original conqueror of the sea. But obviously his motive is important too. Was it an act of romance or rebellion? I think it could be both. Was he or someone he knew compelled to create the first knife of the whole world? When exactly did all the conflict begin that prevented Joy Boy from achieving his dreams, and for what reason? Great questions. Anyways, I imagine this is unprecedented mastery of the sea is what led Joy Boy to meeting Poseidon, the fishermen, and the Neptunians, who may have been totally unknown to and unacquainted with humans and other races at the time. Fantastic comment, Quag. And so, going back to the core of your question of of Joy Boy's motives, right? I would be so interested, and I think at the core and the spirit of the story, if in this advanced civilization where they have everything available to them, you have this one dude, this one individual who refuses to conform to the society at hand, and decides to go out in an act of both rebellion and romance. Decides, similar to Odin, and I think we're going to talk about this here in a second with Praetorius' comment. Similar to Odin, decides to leave that conformity and go out and see the world at large. I would be way more interested in a story like that, considering that it not only tells a very unique tale within the series itself, but it has a lot of relation to us, right? In a place where many different individuals are comfortable where they are. To have this one character go out and attempt to achieve what they actually want to do, which is to go out there, even though this pirate thing doesn't exist yet, to go out there and sail the seas and see the world at large for what it is, right? I would be extremely fascinated in that. As a matter of fact, I would be so down for that being the case. Now, what is his motivation? Maybe his dream, similar to Luffy's, similar to Roger. We just... maybe that's what it is. Maybe Joy Boy's dream is theirs. And he didn't accomplish it. And I'm going to assume Roger didn't either. Which means when Luffy accomplishes it, whatever that dream is, that is going to be like him fulfilling their destiny as well. And carrying on their will. Because maybe Joy Boy's dream, when we find out in the flashback, that it potentially is Luffy's dream as well. Because there was no pirates back in the day. So he couldn't want to be king of the pirates. It's something that was only given to Roger. So I'm very fascinated. I'm very fascinated by the route that can go. But at its core, I want it to be, if I were the individual in charge, right? If I were the big honcho or Big Oda, I think it'd be really cool to bring into question what you would do when everything is available to you. What would you do? Right? Like, you can do whatever you want here on this advanced civilization and this island with... You don't even need to leave it. You know, everything's good to go. Maybe the flipping robots are doing everything for them, right? Like, they literally don't have to do anything. And Joy Boy decided, F all that. We're going to go out and sail the high seas. And go on an adventure. What great would that, how awesome would that be for the overall spirit of One Piece and for what it actually means to be a pirate? Like, the voice entry obviously is going to delve into those topics, what it means to be a pirate, what it means to go out and chase your dreams, the consequences of that, right? So many different things that, stuff like Skypiea and maybe just the entire story has shown to us, right? But because the voice entry is going to be what I believe an encapsulation of the entire series, that to me would be super, super key. Or to have a character like that, similar to Odin, which, tying this into Praetorius' comment, let me go to Praetorius real quick. Because Praetorius had an excellent comment on Joy. So Praetorius comes in and says, I think Joy Boy's story has been heavily foreshadowed by Wano in the Odin flashback. Like Odin, he was the first to set sail and become a pirate. And in the old world, there's probably a single continent. It's the Pangea and the lost continent of Mu connections, which is so interesting to me. And like Wano had no knowledge of a world beyond its borders. We know from the Tontadas it was a time of tyranny, but there was no world government yet. So while the Wano arc was more like the Meiji Restoration, the voice entry era was probably more like the Sengoku Warring States period. That is a great point. With Imu as the daimyo who becomes shogun in United Japan. Fantastic correlation. That mentions other things, like the Council of the Five Elders who watched over the heir of Totoyomi Hideyoshi upon his death with Tokugawa Ieyasu usurping the shogunate. Joy Boy, by setting out to sea, must have discovered foreign lands, Elbaf, Sky Islands, Fish Island, and many more places. Could be similar to Journey to the West. Doing this literally opened the borders of the world, and that made it no longer unipolar, which is the spirit of One Piece, man. To solve this, Imu flooded the world and made all lands into small satellite islands cut off from the world and dependent on management from on high. And that is my favorite part of all of that, and that is so Imu, and to me would make a ton of sense. Like, obviously, if everyone is together, rebellion can happen at any point. So what is the best way to go about this? Establish 20 kingdoms, put yourself all the way up in the sky just in case you have to reset the world again, and then you go out and pull apart all these different islands that were once together and have it to where they each need to, at some point or another, need to rely on a king or some type of thing that ultimately is going to need the help of the Celestial Dragons, of Imu, of the WG, in order for them to function. That's like the best way you could go about it from Imu's standpoint. I think that is so good. That is such a fantastic comment. Even Odin's dance becomes all the more important if it ends up directly echoing the Nika/Joy Boy dance. These two stories are also going to be directly connected by Toki, absolutely. Not to mention that Imu's parallel would then be Kaido and perhaps Orochi too. These parallels are already really interesting, and I'm sure they are going to be loads more to discover. Can't wait to see how this plays out. It's totally invalidated by next chapter. That's just the way the theory game works. Everyone needs to reread that flashback ASAP. I'm always down to reread the greatness of the Odin flashback, so you already know I will definitely be doing that, especially after this comment. But you're absolutely right in so many different aspects, especially with Imu separating the island so they can gain more and have more control. I just think that's such a great idea. Isolation, right? Not allowing these individuals to be tied together. Now the only thing tying a lot of these islands together is just their connection to Luffy, which is so cool. So cool. That is what's going to allow them to come together. It's this one individual who just wanted to go on an adventure and ended up making so many friends that in and of itself became the major alliance that's going to eventually come in and usurp Imu, right? His biggest and worst nightmare. So many interesting ideas there, but the Pangea, which is obviously naming Castle Pangea right all the way up there in the Holy Land, if that isn't enough of a clue of how the world once was, and then having something like a continent polar oars pulling continents and stuff, is like there's a lot of things being put into place. And the parallels in particular with Odin and Joy Boy, and of course with Kaido, Orochi, and Imu, I listen, hey, Wano stocks up, that's what I need. And it's like, we of course still need answers to Toki. These are the individuals who created the poneglyphs to have these things spread around the world. We're obviously not going to get those answers into the Void Century, but certainly when we get the Void Century and we see Joy Boy's flashback and we get that recontextualization similar to what's been taking place in the past few chapters, and we look at Wano through a different lens, we're like, oh man, it was right in front of us the entire time. Even down to, I guarantee you, chapters 10, 43, and 44 with the Drums of Liberation and Luffy springing back up, I guarantee you, when we get out of the Void Century and we see how they originally awakened that fruit, we're gonna come out of that flashback, or we're gonna come out of that flashback looking at chapter 1044 in an even higher light. Like, oh my goodness, the key was right there all along, right? Guarantee it. That once we get that flashback, we look back at that Luffy Kaido fight, we're gonna be like, holy flag runs, in multiple different ways. Like you said, potential Imu, Kaido, Luffy, Joy Boy, Odin parallels. I mean, there's many different things that we're going to be looking at a different light once we actually have the context behind it. Just brilliant stuff. And God, I love that idea so much about Imu flooding the world and making all the lands into small satellite islands cut off and completely dependent on management from on high. I think this is just such a great idea. It's such a great idea, dude. I absolutely adore it. So now, as we wind down, I want to go to a few more comments here. Akbar J says, after this chapter, I now begin to think that the big stride in Mighty Joseph's Joy Boy respects the question, what is that hat doing deep inside the castle on top of the red line? And like we talked about on stream before, I strongly do believe that Instant Messenger Sama, after having defeated and or killed either Joy Boy, who inherited that from Nika, or maybe they're the same person, or whatever, probably is being utilized as a trophy up there, right? As like this symbol of, this is the thing I cannot allow to get into their hands, right? Like, this is the symbol of the will of D, the symbol of the revolution, the symbol that we once attempted to overthrow. I'm going to keep this right here where I know what's best, in the deepest depths of our castle. And no one besides me is going to have access to this thing right here. It'll disappear to history, just how Joy Boy himself disappeared to history. That's what I believe is why that hat is deep inside the castle of the Red Line, Akbar J. That's just my thought, especially considering everything we've talked about so far in this thing. Now let's talk about Akainu. Because Akainu is a very interesting individual. Zimrose 7974 comes in and says, how would Akainu, who has both a sense of duty and his own sense of justice, react to this reveal? Or do you think Akainu and Aokiji, someone knew about the Void Century based off the expressions in this chapter, and they didn't seem shocked so much as forced to accept that the knowledge has been leaked? I don't think Akainu and Aokiji knew of the Void Century, but I do think, especially with Akainu and how he's always felt towards the Gorosei, and Aokiji based on his interactions in Ohara, I feel like it's just both of them reflecting on their journeys up until this point and all of the different things that they either have had to have done according to the will of the Gorosei, according to the will of the Lesser Dragons, and how all those things are starting to make a lot of sense now. How they're starting to put the pieces together too, of why they've tried to hide multiple different things over here, and why they've pushed other things over here, why certain things have happened, like the Ohara incident, why things like whatever Akainu has had to do over the course of his journey has had to happen as well. It's just a moment of self-reflection for both of them. And I'm so glad both of them came out of it with a similar type of like, oh wow moment where they're just deep in thought, remembering their journeys to that point. I think that's such a great way. I mean, the Admirals have been cooking in this arc just in terms of their characterization. But for those two, it's like, man, knowing their history, knowing how you can't think of one without the other. I think it was just so cool how that moment was displayed with their reactions. And their reactions didn't even need to say a word. It's like we can just look at them and be like, man, like, do you actually know, like your comment says? Or are you just deep in thought and be like, oh, that makes so much sense as to why this happened, why this happened, why this happened? Because remember, Akainu has never been goody two-shoes with the Gorosei either. He was arguing with them at the end of Dressrosa. He's like, screw these guys. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do my own thing. And so we obviously know how Aokiji feels, especially after Water 7 in his lobby. So it's like, all of these things that have been coming together just now coming to the forefront, not just to us as the reader, but also to the characters in the series itself. And I can't wait to see what Akainu and Aokiji, what their answers to all of this are going to be. How are they going to move differently after receiving this reveal? Because I'm sure we're going to see a lot from both of them in post-Egghead. Akainu, obviously, in the craziness that's to come. But with Kuzan and what's happening with the Blackbeard Pirates, it's like, what are the two of them? How are their motivations? How is their sense of justice going to be tested coming off of a reveal like this? And I'm very, very excited for that, because that was definitely one of the major highlights of the chapter for me. Was that stuff right there. Now, Josh Pointer comes in and states in chapter 1065, Lilith mentioned something about if only they could have an undying flame, eternal flame, they could create their own artificial sun. In chapter 1067, Shaka says they couldn't replicate the power source that the Ancient Kingdom had. Which brings me to question, what was the Ancient Kingdom's energy source that made us so advanced? I believe it is what Lilith said, something about an eternal flame was their energy source, and the reason Vegapunk can't replicate it is because of the absence of Nika and the Lunarians, which would explain why the Lunarians were hunted to extinction, and another reason why it's called Sun God Nika. Great point. Anel's cover story shows the Lunarians having this energy source flame in the circle. The Mother Flame is also similar to the Lunarians' flames. And it seems the Mother Flame is a source of energy and not just a weapon that it may be similar to the ancient energy. Yes, 100%. It is very similar to the ancient energy. If not the exact same thing. Vegapunk 1068 talks about how he wants energy to be free for everyone around the world. Yes, that you're absolutely right. That is exactly what he said. So then if that's true and that's what he wanted, I wonder what he's going to do to attempt to achieve that, right? Obviously, he's already dead. But would he leave that in the hands of the Straw Hats / someone else that's very close to him, or one of his satellites, to be like, yeah, we're going to try our hardest to ensure that this energy is shared around the world? Or maybe that's something we see at the end of the series, that stuff that uses the mother flame as an energy source, the whole world over can utilize this energy to exactly what he wanted, right? But in regards to the energy source, I do believe it's either the exact same energy source from the past, is this eternal flame that they have recreated in the mother flame. Or it's a recreation similar to what Vegapunk has done with other things in the series. The same way he created an artificial devil fruit to mimic the original, now he has this mother flame to mimic the original energy source, right? Like it's these things that are very, very similar to the originals. But knowing Vegapunk's perfectionist and how he's quote unquote failed in recreating these individuals, like the seraphim, recreating the Shishibukai or the fruits, there has to be something different with the mother flame that makes it at least a tiny wincy bit different than the original energy source. What that is, I'm not entirely sure, but I do think it's almost identical to what the original energy source was, which is why it was so important for us to wait for that reveal to take place here, and having Marcus Mars, having Molotris looking at the mother flame and be like, sweet mother Flagnards, right? Like we need this thing. Like this is the thing that's going to allow us to progress forward and do stuff like the Lucia thing all over again, right? And this is crazy what Dofi said earlier in this chapter as well, right? In regards to that thing too. But yeah, definitely it has a lot to do with the Lunarians, and I know a lot of people pointed out to the fact that it's very similar to Luffy's hair when he's in Gear 5. There's a mystery there to that energy source that I can't wait to figure out. And that eternal flame aspect is so interesting to me. Now, we're going to finish off here. I apologize if I did not get to your comments this week. But I most certainly plan on doing the Afterthoughts more often. Again, hopefully way more consistent than I have. My camera died in the middle of that explanation. Sorry about that. The last one comes in from Subra. Shout out to my dog Subra. I know I've been promising the Afterthoughts for a while. We're finally back, and I believe it's your birthday, if I'm not mistaken. Happy birthday, dog. Happy birthday. I hope all is well. And I hope by the time this goes out, it's still your birthday. If not, blame my computer. Don't blame me. Blame my computer. Subra! So to start with, this is my translation of the final page Vegapunk's dialogue. Only that section, and some things may be curious, so here's what I got. This is coming from Subra's translation. In other words, what I know is the imperfect story of that 100 years. I won't leave behind a story filled with my imagination here, but only the truth that is proven/right. The protagonist, also the specially set MC or protag in Japanese, of this story was born 900 years ago in an unexpectedly advanced civilization. It's a great issue I'm facing here, not a single translation covered it well. The word used here is arumajiki, which means unworthy or improper. Everyone translated as incredible or bountiful, so I chose unexpectedly, but keep your eye open in the official. He was a man who fought with an elastic/stretchy body as if he was a sun god Nika from Elbaf. His name was Joy Boy. In these seas, he was the first man to be called a pirate. Okay, Subra, coming in here with the first translation of One Piece. Okay, my boy. He says, I want to show two things related to this. Number one, Oda here created 3 timelines and made sure Nika, Joy Boy, and Luffy are the protagonists of their own story. In a way, you can say Nika was literally a god. Maybe he was considered a god in Elbaf too. That's a possibility. So that means the heartbeat that Zunisha felt of Joy Boy was connected to the devil fruit, which means Joy Boy is somehow linked within a fruit. The theory of the fruit being the will of a certain person seems very clear. Or was Joy Boy the incarnation or avatar of the sun god? Fascinating stuff. I didn't even think about all of that in regards to, especially I know when we get to Elbaf, we're going to get into a lot of like old mythologies and how that connects to the story, how Oda's going to odify those mythologies, stuff of that nature. So I really did not even think about us going into stuff like that. I just thought that classic One Piece fashion, Nika was just considered to be a god because they just thought he was cool and because he was doing stuff they'd never seen before, right? Similar to how they refer to fruits as like magic and sorcery because they just cannot understand it. Similar to the way that we look at the current day events of the Gorosei and think that they're literally from the depths of Dante's Inferno because we just can't understand what's going on here or how they're able to do this, right? So that's the way that I'm seeing it, because I mean, you see someone come back from the dead and start turning other things into rubber, I'd be like, wait a minute, yeah, this is most certainly a god. But I think that's what Oda's going with is to odify that thing. But if you're right, and these literally are these type of godly beings, then hey, let's see what they have in store for us. Continue from that, here Oda said that he had an elastic body like Nika. So the question is, did he eat the fruit before going on the pirate journey? Or in that ancient civilization, some people possessed abilities, which in the case of Joy Boy, was later turned into fruit. So you think that it was within the ancient civilization that they were able to manifest their dreams and desires to what Vegapunk said. And later, it was turned into a fruit. Those abilities, right? Those things that they harnessed. That's also fascinating, like, that he literally had this stretchy body, and that stretchy body was then turned into an ability, right? Turned into something that they could eat and become something similar to that ability. That's how they attempted to transfer their will. And that would lead into the fruits having their own, the will of their own and stuff like that, especially the Zoans. That's fascinating. To summarize the theory, I think in the ancient civilization, people had powers, kind of like My Hero Academia, where it's like Buccaneers or the Lunarians. Or God passed his will on some people, which would be the chosen people. However, the people who did not have those abilities, Imu and the others, and they tried to possess the abilities to create devil fruits. So they killed the special race people, or captured and take their blood samples to create fruits to possess abilities themselves. Also a possibility. So the will of the dead, be the people who created the Mother Flame Buccaneers, might have created the Noah. That most certainly is something I am very in line with. I think that'd be really, really cool. Be a part of the individuals, the Lunarians being a part of the individuals, and only created the Mother Flame, which seems like the most likely scenario. And then the Buccaneers who might have created the Noah, I most certainly think that that's the route that we're heading into. It's still incomplete, but let's see. I think the next chapter we'll get answers. Some answers. This is Oda. Future Super here. Some info I had to share. Uteron said S108 on Mother Flame means SS, Ez, 10, Te, 8, Bon. Esteban in Spanish means child of the sun. That's true. It most certainly does. Wait, remember about that Hispanic joy boy? I'm down. Next is the Hanuman theory, as Indian time to flex. Oh yeah, this one's a classic. Lord Hanuman, when he was a kid, tried to eat the sun, thinking it was a fruit. Yes. Oh man, I can most certainly see that being a part of the voice entry. So he flew too close to the sun. They literally said it in this chapter. They literally mentioned the fact that Vegapunk flew too close to the sun, and in my opinion, that was a sort of I flew too close to the sun, meaning that like it was metaphorical, right? It wasn't literal. But if this is going into and connecting it some way to the story, I think that's really, really cool, and a way that the story itself can then connect to this myth as well. And became a giant to eat with the king of the gods, Indra, god of thunder, and who used elephant as a ride. Ooh, okay. Was called to stop him with the Zunisha stuff. So he struck him down with lightning, and as a result, and Luffy utilizing, literally taking lightning into his hand in the Kaido fight. Ooh, okay, you're cooking, Supra. So he struck him down with lightning. As a result, Hanuman almost died. People theorizing Luffy would eat the Mother Flame, and here's the full context of the Hindu myth. Oh, yeah, that's right. We were talking about that. Luffy potentially eating the Mother Flame and then having those abilities. Oh man, so many things we can connect to the course of the story with this myth. That is awesome. A lot of different things, actually. Super cool, especially with the fruit, the sun being the fruit, the elephant as a ride, with lightning. Super is cooking. And then so only for us Yamato fans. All right, Yamato, people who do not like Yamato, you already know it's time. Exit the video. If you look at the map in the cover story, I think that shows Yamato's journey through Wano like Odin. Absolutely. There's a cross mark for the Enma Shrine, and after that, there's very little left to travel in Wano. We see and the journey seems like coming to the end very soon. Will we meet Yamato at Elbaf? I hope. This gave me a little hope, so just wanted to share. I hope so. Super. If you're right on that, oh man, Elbaf is about to be even better than I thought. Yamato greatness in 4K? Sorry, that's coming up way too long. Dude, you cooked. You most certainly cooked. I hope you enjoyed reading it. Absolutely. So happy the Afterthoughts are back. Thank you, King. Thank you, Super. What a great way for us to end the Afterthoughts on something that directly connects to myths, which we know Oda has been leaning on a lot of myths and fairy tales throughout the course of the story to tell the story that he's attempting to tell. So extremely exciting stuff, especially with the Hanuman stuff there at the end. I'm floored by how many things can be tied back to that. That's actually super, super cool. So yeah, great thing. And also with the Esteban thing, I think that's also super cool as well. Literally meaning child of the sun. Whether that's just a classic Oda Kinemon thing where he just on coincidence, right? Things line up and it just works, or if he actually put thought into that. I think that's actually, either way, I think that's really, really cool. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been the afterthoughts for this chapter. What a magnificent chapter it was. Around the world peace and lore peace at its highest. But now with the next chapter, what will be in store for us? So we're almost out the door of Egghead Island. The world is about to react to this massive amount of news breaking out about Nika and Joy Boy. So looking forward to seeing who we cut to as this news reverberates around the planet. I'm looking forward to seeing reactions from Joy Boy, potentially Shanks, Blackbeard, the Emu himself, Dragon, all these individuals around the planet that are going to have some sort of endgame importance. What will the words Nika and Joy Boy create within them, right? And whether this is new information for them or old information for them. I can't wait to see how each individual in the story reacts to all of this, because that's going to give us more context and more clues as to how they feel about this thing as a whole. And especially Emu, because you already know this is going to hit for Emu, man. Ugh. Greatness is incoming. I will see y'all for chapter 11-15. Thank y'all so much for watching. Over to have this a wonderful day. Thank you for all the comments. Sorry I couldn't get to all of them. It was a lot, but y'all cooked. Y'all cooked, man. Thank y'all so much for watching. This has been the Afterthoughts. Joy Boy was the first pirate, man. It's still a pirate manga, dude.